Jews are terrible people.
You might remember Christopher Cantwell as the crying Nazi.
I know we talk a lot of shit on the internet, right?
This moniker was achieved after Cantwell posted a video of himself crying in a hotel room despite spending 2 days beforehand claiming he was ready for violence.
Of course we're capable. I'm carrying a pistol. I go to the gym all the time. I'm trying to make myself more capable of violence.
Shouting about Jews and telling the media that a lot of people were going to have to die before he was done.
I mean, someone died.
I think that a lot more people are going to die before we're done here, frankly.
What if I told you the crying Nazi was now a gay smut author writing fiction about his sexual encounters with other men?
Was I going to put this in your asshole?
No, these are not coming from a hacked phone. I actually made the post.
This transformation into a gay erotica author has been complex, involving drug abuse.
And I've smoked a lot of crack. I've done a good amount of crack in my day.
Jail time, public ridicule,
Chris Cantwell. I find that when I carry a gun, people are very unlikely to hit me.
and much, much more. Join me as we go down the rabbit hole and view the whole story of Christopher Cantwell. Christopher Cantwell's political journey began by being introduced to Fox News and conservative media in the 2000s. By the end of the decade, he had discovered libertarianism, which was where he really dedicated himself to politics, started his social media career, and even ran for Congress. By the mid-2010s, Cantwell would fall down a familiar pipeline and turn towards white nationalism, anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, and the then growing alt-right movement. In the present day, after trying to rebrand as a more traditional conservative, Cantwell is rebranded as a gay erotica and smut author.
No, these are not coming from a hacked phone. I actually made the post.
To explore this intellectual journey, let us begin with Cantwell's origins. Cantwell was raised in an upscale neighborhood in Long Island, New York. Despite having a relatively privileged upbringing, Cantwell would quickly fall into trouble that would persist with him throughout his life. In Cantwell's words, he always had issues with authority, and in his household, authority was very overvalued, causing him to act out even more. Cantwell details in his old blog, quote, "My father worked for the federal government most of his life. During my early childhood, he worked as an air traffic controller with the Federal Aviation Administration. This paid pretty well, and so my parents lived in the fairly well-to-do city of Stony Brook, New York." End quote. After explaining that his father was a government employee for most of his life, Cantwell turns to his mother, who was a devout Catholic. As a child, Cantwell would be subjected to religion classes and weekly church attendance despite his protests. Cantwell states that he was raised in a household that had very little respect for individual autonomy. He writes the following, quote, "Between the two of them, the system of morality I was taught consisted of three things: authority, authority, and you guessed it, authority. We were to obey the church, the state, and our parents. Going outside of those lines had serious repercussions, including spanking, being forced to eat soap, being threatened with an eternity of burning in hell, threats to call the police, long periods of being deprived of privileges, and a good deal of screaming and yelling." End quote. Cantwell's teenage years, just like his adult life, were full of delinquency, drug use, and criminality. Cantwell's initial drug of choice was marijuana, and he describes many disciplinary attempts from his parents to get him to stop, including calling the police on many occasions. This would culminate in Cantwell running away from home. Without food or shelter, Cantwell would resort to stealing. He writes the following on his blog. Quote, "I became proficient at breaking into cars. We would steal anything: stereos, change, pages, anything we could cash in on, constantly trying to flip stolen goods for drug money. I became plugged into an ever-growing network of criminals and began to make a name for myself as quite the badass." End quote. Cantwell goes on to describe how his drug habit would escalate, moving on to harder drugs like crack and heroin. Cantwell alleges he would smoke crack all night and then shoot heroin to deal with the come down. As Cantwell started taking more and more drugs, he began selling them as well. Eventually, in the year 2000, Cantwell would spend 6 months in the county jail on weapons theft and drunk driving charges, where he also spent his 20th birthday. Jail would be a turnaround moment for Cantwell, where he would lose weight and get his GED, and upon leaving, he would get a job in landscaping through his father. At this time, Cantwell would also attempt to join the army after seeing a recruitment ad on television. In the year 2000, people believed we were living in a time of peace, the end of history, in which there were no serious contenders to US hegemony. Likewise, the army recruiters promised all the perks of joining the army while minimizing the risk of actually being sent to war. However, due to his criminal record, Cantwell would be denied. This would devastate Cantwell and greatly hurt his self-esteem. Cantwell might consider himself lucky, as only 1 year later, this September 11th attacks on the World Trade Center would take place.
9/11.
Like many people at the time, this would be Cantwell's entry into politics. Cantwell describes developing an obsession with Fox News. He would watch Sean Hannity and Bill O'Reilly, and accept on face value that the Democrats were the problem with America, and express outrage that liberals didn't support the troops in Iraq and Afghanistan. Over the next 8 years, Cantwell would work as a computer technician, providing tech support and working as an operations manager, eventually starting his own computer consulting company. Then, in 2009, Cantwell would receive a felony charge for driving under the influence. Due to his prior charges for the same crime, Cantwell was facing 4.5 years in prison. In light of this, Cantwell would hire an attorney and begin researching his defense. Along the way, he would discover Michael Badnerich's Introduction to the Constitution. Badnerich, being a prominent libertarian figure, made many fringe claims in his series, arguing that the 16th Amendment was never properly ratified, that the IRS lacks constitutional authority to collect taxes, and that driver's licenses, vehicle registration, and similar requirements are unconstitutional privileges rather than obligations, implying individuals can opt out of them without penalty. But nonetheless, Cantwell was impressed and described stumbling upon this series as his moment of radicalization. He writes, quote, "I remember it like it was yesterday. Sometime during the course, Michael asks his audience, 'Do you have a right to violently overthrow the government?' He warns the class that just asking that question, they will be looked at as extremists. After reading from the Declaration of Independence, Michael concludes that we not only have that right, but the moral obligation to do so." End quote. This is the point in which Cantwell was sent down the rabbit hole, a well-known libertarian to alt-right pipeline that eventually led to the radical views we know him for today. Quote, "I studied the Constitution of the United States. I read the Federalist and Anti-Federalist papers, Supreme Court decisions, and eventually Human Action by Ludwig von Mises. I delved into conspiracy theories, crawling deeper and deeper down a rabbit hole looking for that moment in history when our glorious republic had been hijacked by the global elite. For hours on end, I would sit in front of my computer, furiously searching Google for material that would improve my arguments, because I was certain I was right, and any failure to win an argument was only because of my inability to articulate my point correctly." End quote. You can see Cantwell demonstrates a profound confidence, making claims that he could never lose an argument on the weaknesses of his views. This fairly narcissistic outlook is common amongst radicalized individuals who tend to have a very black and white view of society, where they are on the side of truth and justice, and others are either evil or useful idiots. In contrast, a part of political science is comparing many different views on their merits, understanding that all worldviews have blind spots and weaknesses, and that many different views can explain the data, and sometimes a pluralistic approach is necessary. For Cantwell, however, it's very hard for him to entertain the idea that well-meaning, intelligent, and rational adults could disagree on politics, a subject that is, by its nature, very ambiguous, based on moral feelings that differ greatly between individuals, with little agreed upon methods to resolve these differences like there are in other disciplines, like, say, the sciences. This highly rigid and quite narcissistic thinking of Cantwell's has led him to routinely advocate for political violence over and over again, non-stop, as we will see throughout the video. Upon becoming a libertarian, Cantwell would begin seeking to organize in person, browsing sites like meetup.com. Shortly after, Cantwell would attend a Tea Party rally, the Tea Party being a right-wing anti-government movement that gained a lot of traction during the 2000s and early 2010s. During the march, Cantwell claims he was the loudest one there, which attracted the attention of organizer Gigi Bowman, who advised Cantwell to join the Libertarian Party and 9/11 Truther movement. This led to Cantwell becoming an assistant organizer for Campaign for Liberty, director of recruiting for the Suffolk Libertarian Party, and a committeeman for the Libertarian Party of New York State, while also Cantwell would run for Congress in 2010 as a Libertarian Party candidate. During his time in the Libertarian Party, Cantwell would rub shoulders with many anarcho-capitalists, a form of libertarianism that rejects any role of government whatsoever. Intrigued, Cantwell would begin watching anarcho-capitalist, scientific racism advocate, men's rights activist, and alleged cult leader Stefan Molyneux.
I love your show, and I respect what you do. Keep up the good work. What a lovely message. The message, I guess you could say, slightly sullied by the fact that this fine young man sent me $1.
Cantwell writes, quote, "I was now in a position that, if I were to be intellectually honest with people, I would have to advocate for the abolition of that government and the constitution that purportedly formed it. I would have to say that there should be no taxation of any sort, and there should be no government money, and there should be no government laws whatsoever," end quote. At this point, Cantwell's trial was approaching for driving under the influence, in which he was offered a new plea deal, 45 days in jail, in exchange for not receiving felony charges. Cantwell took the plea deal and served his time to avoid being a felon. With the 2012 election approaching, Cantwell would rally behind Republican candidate Ron Paul. This time in American politics was very shaped by failures of Bushism, the Iraq War, and the 2007 recession. Ron Paul, positioning himself as against the ruling class, attracted many supporters from both sides of the aisle, including liberals who felt disaffected by the wealthy and top 1%. This would lead to Cantwell getting into a lot of conflict, as he viewed their support of redistributive policies as a violent attack on individual autonomy. This divisiveness caused Cantwell to participate little in the campaign, mostly contributing through hanging reminders to vote on people's doors. What's more, Ron Paul would ultimately lose the nomination to Mitt Romney. Many of Paul's supporters believed him to have been cheated, as the RNC changed the rules regarding delegates mid-election to ensure the nominee better reflected the outcome of the primaries. However, Romney had such a majority of delegates that even if the rules had not been changed, Paul had no viable path to victory. Nonetheless, many of Paul's supporters believed the election had been rigged against him, including Cantwell, who at this moment lost his belief in democracy and electoral politics. Towards the end of the election, Cantwell would become involved in the Free State Project. This is an effort in which libertarians migrate to New Hampshire in an attempt to sway the state towards libertarian politics. Cantwell would move to a home outside of Keene while collecting unemployment, something many libertarians would find hypocritical due to their belief that redistributive policies are based on coercion and that welfare funds have therefore been stolen from taxpayers. By this time, Cantwell had developed a reputation for himself as a volatile figure prone to infighting and outburst. Upon arriving in New Hampshire, he would face a lot of scrutiny and ostracism from other libertarians. Not only this, his alcoholism was worsening by the day since his DUI charge. As a result, members of the Free State Project would attempt to warn the community against Cantwell online, even causing the FBI's Joint Terrorist Task Force to investigate him.
No one likes you. No one likes you. No one likes you. I know half the people in this town, and 90% out of the people do not like you. They want you to go away. They want you to leave. Do you know why nobody's come out of the houses right now? Because they fucking hate you. Every motherfucker one of you hates you. They don't like you. It doesn't matter. They don't like you people. So why don't you go away? Go away. That's all it is. Just go away. And I tell you to get a job because you're a bum.
As a result, another prominent libertarian figure in the Free State Project who was facing imprisonment for selling drugs would be offered a deal by the FBI in which they would become an informant and be wired for sound, specifically to try to convict Cantwell on conspiracy to commit terrorism. They didn't take the deal, and ergo Cantwell was never convicted on anything. Cantwell, realizing that he was incredibly unpopular amongst the libertarian scene in New Hampshire, sought to garner support by creating his own content. Already having a modest following across Facebook, he began uploading rant-style videos on the platform. One person who took notice of Cantwell was libertarian activist Adam Kokesh, one of the largest online activists at the time, who had a show on RT, the Russian state-controlled propaganda network.
On Independence Day of last year, I loaded a shotgun at Freedom Plaza in between the White House and the Capitol in an act of defiance against all of the gun laws in America. I did not expect the result, which was a SWAT team raid on my home.
Unfortunately, Kokesh's co-host was a member of the Free State Project and extremely critical of Cantwell. Throwing no softballs, Cantwell described the interview as an ambush. Moreover, Cantwell claimed he felt humiliated and even considered giving up on politics. Instead, Cantwell made a rant-style response video in which he angrily screams into the camera in his signature style. This video would go on to have more views than his segment on Kokesh's show.
Since I don't watch the show, I had no clue whatsoever that Allie Havens was a regular part of it and would be there, and I have a bit of history with Allie Havens, which Adam was apparently very much aware of, and thought it'd be just hysterical to, put me on the spot with this insufferable woman who worked extraordinarily hard to cause me great difficulty. It became a very adversarial situation, and I'm pretty pissed off about the matter, if I'm honest with you. In any case, Allie wants to see me kicked out of the Liberty Movement or some shit. Good luck with that, sweetheart. You keep on trying. What was that other thing she wanted to talk to me about? Oh, that's right. Shooting a 12-year-old girl in the face for stepping on flowers, yeah! Well, to answer your question, Allie, no. No, of course I wouldn't shoot a 12-year-old girl in the face for stepping on my flowers. First of all, I don't have any fucking flowers! My caustic personality causes them to wither and die every time I walk out to my car in the morning. Flowers are for people like you and people like Derek. But even if I did have flowers, shooting a 12-year-old girl for stepping on them would be a waste of a fucking bullet. I'm a 260-pound man. I just grab her by her fucking ankles and bash her worthless cock-sucking mouth against the corner of a brick wall until the gurgling stopped. And then I'd sell the leftovers to Jerry fucking Sandusky for restitution. Yeah, because that's who I am, right? Chris Cantwell, comedian, activist, and child sex trafficker, yeah! Fuck you and your straw man arguments. After I was off the air, Adam said that my response was unlibertarian. Who the fuck do you think you are, man? Since when does libertarian mean politically correct and polite? Since fucking when does being a libertarian mean I treat a dishonest, talentless hack like Allie Havens with respect?
This was a defining moment for Cantwell, as it taught him that he could benefit from taking on larger names without having to fear the consequences. It also positively reinforced his hostile approach towards others, telling him that screaming angrily and causing controversy could get him the fame that he desired. Cantwell was happy about this outcome, except for the fact that shortly after uploading the video to Facebook, he would receive a copyright complaint, and upon trying to fight it, would be banned for 30 days. This caused Cantwell to branch out to Twitter and the now defunct Google+. Cantwell would also begin his own radio show titled Brink of Bedlam. However, the format was very unpopular, as his audience was used to short-style rant videos, and this was well before the podcast golden age. Instead, Cantwell would have more success starting two new blogs, one entitled Because I Hate the Government and another How to Anarchist. One post on the latter site was about Android apps that anarchists could use, which garnered a lot of views and resulted in Cantwell being invited onto many podcasts. However, the first post on Because I Hate the Government would have a much less positive reception. This article would be the first time Cantwell expressed a long-standing belief of his, namely, that it's morally justified to kill government employees without provocation. Cantwell believes this because government employees uphold the state, which to libertarians is based on coercion and force, ergo, killing a government employee without provocation is a form of self-defense. Cantwell wrote the following in the article, quote, "So what to do? It's a terribly unpopular thing to say, but the answer, at some point, is to kill government agents. The government agents know that, and that's why they want a tank." Carla Gurecki, president of the Free State Project, correctly points out in her letter to the Concord police chief that most libertarians strongly believe in the non-aggression principle and choose to disassociate from those promoting the initiation of force. If anyone needs a refresher course in the English language, aggression is the initiation of force, and the non-aggression principle does not condemn the use of defensive force, even if the cult of the omnipotent state does. I believe in the non-aggression principle, which is why I believe in using defensive force against aggressors. It's not a terribly complicated concept. If someone uses violence against me, I am within my right to use whatever level of force is necessary to repel the threat, and the non-aggression principle doesn't make exception for shiny badges or letters from men in robes, end quote. This would be interpreted by many libertarians as advocating for political violence, yet Cantwell would never back down. In a later article, Cantwell would argue for overthrowing the government. Quote, "It's not impossible, impractical, or immoral to overthrow the government." He continues, "My proposal, and in all honesty, I'm still working on the details, has been to resort to force, to kill government agents who would otherwise use force against them, until their jobs simply become so dangerous that they seek other lines of work." End quote. Cantwell would carry these lines of reasoning with him up until present day. During the early 2010s, Cantwell wanted to kill public sector workers. Later, he would want to kill leftists and Jews. This is an ongoing theme of his, and we will see that when Cantwell has faced repercussions for these threats, he cries out that he is being persecuted. We can also see that Cantwell has a very unnuanced and simplistic understanding of self-defense, or that is, at least compared to what the law states. For example, if someone commits violence against you, you actually do not have the legal right to violently attack that person after the threat has been neutralized. In many cases where someone kills an abuser, despite that abuser not posing an immediate threat to them, it might be a mitigating factor in sentencing, but it is still not legal. This concept of immediate harm is written in most self-defense laws. There is also a concept of proportionality when it comes to self-defense. There is a meme about how anarcho-capitalists believe that you should be able to shoot a bazooka at someone using your driveway to do a U-turn because they are violating your property rights. In the same vein, Cantwell believes that you should be able to kill police officers over a traffic stop, or even the most minor violations of private property rights. He has stated that you should be able to use lethal force to protect even a paperclip. Obviously, someone could respond to what I've just said with who cares what the law has to say, but my point in mentioning this is to show that Cantwell's views on self-defense are not intuitive to most people or society. They are radical. Cantwell's belief that he is justified in committing violence against people because of things like speech when there is no immediate threat is an underlying theme of all his coming legal troubles, as we will see. Nonetheless, shortly after this controversy, Cantwell would create his own website. His name had garnered so much controversy that it felt fitting to just go with ChristopherCantwell.com, the slogan of the site being anarchist, atheist, asshole.
Merry Christmas, Jesus freaks. As an atheist, today is completely meaningless to me, but of course the rest of my family insists on getting together and exchanging gifts, which I can't afford to do because I'm recently unemployed.
Despite atheism having little to do with Cantwell's advocacy, at the time, the religion debate was so ubiquitous that anyone tangibly connected to online debates would specify where they stood on it. Due to his comments about political violence, he would be expelled from the Free State Project, and as a result, Cantwell's first article on his own site would be about his expulsion from the group, further doubling down on his comments about the use of political violence. This would go viral in the blogosphere, garnering a newfound following for Cantwell, and again teaching him that controversy was a sure way to get the publicity he desired. But Cantwell's stance would naturally not be received well by most people, which he would attribute to libertarianism being taken over by leftists and left-wing influence. Not only did Cantwell see pacifism and opposition to political violence as a hindrance to libertarianism, he also believed political correctness was a growing problem as well. Around this time, Cantwell would face controversy regarding several rape jokes he had made. Some libertarian activists, including survivors of sexual assault, would confront Cantwell about his comments. In response, Cantwell didn't back down and aggressively responded to anyone who took issue with his politically incorrect statements, going on to boast about beating them in debate and turning the libertarian scene against them. He writes, quote, "All of a sudden, it's not entirely safe for libertarians to throw baseless and meaningless ad hominem attacks like racist and misogynist around. You have to actually worry about gaining a reputation as a social justice warrior. Screaming about feminist conspiracy theories like rape culture and the patriarchy actually has consequences. Just so all of you youngins who read this years down the road know, it wasn't always like that. Somebody had to build a name for themselves, risk it all, and confront these people," end quote. From this experience, and with his diminishing belief in electoral politics, Cantwell decided that his primary goal in politics would be to radicalize the existing libertarian community even more, gatekeeping against leftism and pushing the movement further into extremism. This goal is something he would explicitly state on his blog. Cantwell would also publish an article entitled "Libertarianism Saved My Life." In a Free Talk Live podcast, Cantwell would elaborate on the article and explain how if it wasn't for libertarianism, he would have taken his own life.
And the feeling that I have to stop this group of violent armed people who can kill me leads me to the conclusion that, you know, like I should just go out like blasting, you know. And this is something that, you know, has been on my mind, you know, for a long time. It's not completely out of my mind, frankly. I still think about these things. And when I got in with the Libertarian Party,
thanks for not doing it, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, I
like hanging out with you.
It's going swimmingly, you know. Yeah. So this whole living thing, you know, there's a lot to it. But when I got involved with the Libertarian Party, I was kind of like looking. The idea was I was looking for something to die for, frankly, and I found something to live for. That like I wanted. The idea was that I went in and like I knew that like if I just went out blasting as this guy who just got a DUI, that they're like, okay, who cares, right? So I think that I'm going to like try to make this more of a story. I'm going to run for Congress, right? A former congressional candidate goes out blasting. You know, this is a little different. You know, a talk radio show host goes out blasting. This is a little different. I mean, you know, and what happens is as I'm going forward, I'm finding things that I can do instead of getting myself killed. And this is, you know, the gist of the story of how the Libertarian Party saved my life. That this was my introduction to all of these things.
Interesting.
So tonight, folks, I am proud to profile the latest group of heroes who are attempting to give big government an overreach around.
But these brave patriots are fighting back. They are difference makers.
Another initiative that Cantwell would join was the Free Keene Project. This group would engage in non-violent protest and private sector civil disobedience, most notably through harassing parking enforcement officers over ticketing and plugging expired meters in mass. This project would be featured on The Colbert Report, in which Cantwell and two other members of the group would be mocked and ridiculed in front of an audience of millions of people.
Meet the Free Keene Squad. James Cleveland, a.k.a.
I think it's fair to say that I'm the mastermind.
The Mastermind. Chris Cantwell.
This is a .38 caliber revolver in a paddle holster, and I carry it on my hip.
The Enforcer. The Free Keene Squad has a clear plan to free the people of Keene. Tell them, Mastermind.
Free Keene necessarily isn't about freeing people per se.
A powerful vision for a better tomorrow.
Go back to your truck and drive away.
I'm doing my job.
Okay, doesn't look like it.
Yes, this may look like the Free Keene Squad are being total dicks to innocent meter maids, but if that were true, why doesn't anyone stop them?
I find that when I carry a gun, people are very unlikely to hit me.
You can say almost what you want entirely to public officials. You can't threaten to kill them because that's like coercion, that's extortion, that's initiation of force.
By the end of 2013, Cantwell would start a podcast called Some Garbage Podcast. This podcast was mostly intended as a comedy podcast in which Cantwell and friends would drink beers and chat about libertarian issues. More importantly, Cantwell would also join Free Talk Live as one of their revolving co-hosts, a podcast associated with the Free State Project in New Hampshire. This would end when Cantwell responded to a user on Twitter calling them the N-word. The argument started after Cantwell had called women on the radio noise. In response, Cantwell said, "Shut up, N-word." On another occasion, Christopher Can't Stop Saying the N-word Well called the parents of Michael Brown the N-word, Brown being an African-American 18-year-old killed by police officer Darren Wilson in 2014. Cantwell also published an article called Trayvon Martin's Mother is a Worthless Sack of Shit, Trayvon Martin being a black 17-year-old killed by George Zimmerman, a controversial case that also sparked racial tensions in America. We will see that Cantwell's staunch opposition to Black Lives Matter plays a large part in his story. Nonetheless, this behaviour would get him fired from Free Talk Live, which would greatly hurt Cantwell and was something that he wouldn't forget. A close collaborator of Cantwell was a man named Ian Bernard, who also went by Ian Freeman. In the Free State Project, many people would go by the last name Freeman in an attempt to parallel freed slaves changing their names. Cantwell and Bernard were roommates, and as Cantwell would later reveal, they primarily lived together to sell drugs. Eventually, the FBI would raid Bernard's property due to allegations over possessing CP.
Developing tonight, the FBI has raided a home in Keene, taking several computers. Investigators are tight-lipped, but people living in the home are talking.
Residents there say about 10 computers were seized.
That's where Ian Freeman lives, organizer of Free Keene, a liberty activist group. Freeman is also on the Free Talk Live radio show on Liberty Radio Network. One of his co-hosts says that he didn't do anything wrong.
Bernard was also on record making very concerning statements about the age of consent, a remarkably common thing in libertarian circles.
Let's go to the phones instead. Joe is listening in New York. You're on Free Talk Live. Hello, Joe.
Hi, this is Joe from New York. I have a question for Ian.
Yes, Joe.
Why do you on occasion seem to imply that sexual contact between children and adults is acceptable?
Well, I think that people can consent to the behavior they would like to engage in.
So you don't think that would be a crime?
I can tell you, sir, that I engaged in sexual contact with somebody who was 16 when I was 10, and
I thought it was 11.
People would call whatever. I don't remember exactly what year it happened, but I was pretty darn young, and I was fully able to make that decision for myself. Would you call that a crime?
Absolutely, of course, it's a crime.
Why?
Children don't have the developmental ability to consent. I mean, that is just a clear, obvious fact, and it's simply disturbing that you wouldn't understand that. But I have an idea on why you might not, and that's because many abuse victims, due to the psychological trauma of the abuse, make up excuses for their abuser and basically blame themselves.
Despite this, Cantwell and Bernard would remain close collaborators and defend each other throughout their respective controversies.
We have hostility when we don't have a pedophile living on the corner.
He's not a pedophile, okay? His girlfriend is 17
You need
years old.
to go away.
Bernard had also dated a 14-year-old girl for 5 years, allegedly with the blessing of the girl's parents. Cantwell would state that he was jealous of Bernard because he found the 14-year-old girl attractive.
I mentioned that there's another fucking recording that you're probably not going to end up hearing because it's just complete gibberish. But part of the reason I did that was I was uttering to myself about this other situation. Ian Freeman, who I worked with at Free Talk Live, a broadcast radio station, 150 broadcast stations across the United States, broadcast radio program. He has a girlfriend by the name of Renee, and I'm not sure that I actually know her real name. Renee Kate, she goes by sometimes. She's presently 19 years old. She was the 14 when they met. Jesus Christ, you fucking pedophile. I'm half kidding. Calling him that. You pedophile, whatever the fuck they call this. But I've been very jealous in a lot of ways because she's very, very attractive. And Ian had his fucking balls snipped. He had a fucking vasectomy when he was like 25 years old. He's the same age as me, 36 years old. And he had his fucking vasectomy at such a young age. Just cut himself off from the fucking child thing. And I'm like, you fucking maniac. I'm trying to start working on my posture now. Stop. That'll rip me into the fucking crumb thing. Look for crumbs on the ceiling, psychopath! So I was very jealous of him. So like he has no hope or desire to produce children, and he has this very young woman she's damaged. I mean, she's fucking completely nuts, and you have to be out of your fucking mind to try to tame a fucking girl like this. But as you might have noticed, I fit that fucking description. And so I did a very terrible thing. They feel comfortable with me, and so they air their problems. And she finds Ian lacking in his masculinity, as do I think most people who come into contact with Ian Freeman. And so I have attempted to provide some fatherly guidance in this direction, which I tried to fatherly guide her into my fucking bed the other night. And I verbally, the only thing I did, I put my arm around her, she did not fall into my warm embrace, and so I let it go.
What, you thought we could get through a whole story about a libertarian without one coming up? But Cantwell would also attend Liberty Fest in New York City, in which he would attempt a stand-up set, opening up by saying if he looked like Adam Kokesh, he would never wear clothes, a grave foreshadowing of what was to come.
So I am so honored to be here with all of you tonight and be counted among such distinguished speakers as Adam Kokesh. Adam takes a certain amount of flack, but it's mostly bullshit. I actually heard somebody talking shit that Adam's always showing off his biceps. And I'm like, wouldn't you?
Is that going to put this in your asshole? No, these are not coming from a hash bone. I actually made the post.
Yes, sir. You can tell Cantwell is a big comedy fan. In this set, he makes derivative remarks like, so-and-so is here tonight, like a Comedy Central roast.
Gigi Bowman's here tonight. I know that because I can see her hair from Penn Station.
Also around this time, Cantwell had an account on the website Funny or Die, where he would upload skit videos. In one video, he yells at the NSA in his unhinged style we have all come to know and love.
My fellow Americans, it has been said that politics makes for strange bedfellows and that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So today I used my Verizon landline phone to speak with my contacts in Al-Qaeda, and we have signed a pact that will restore this great republic once and for all. Through their connections to the Iranian and North Korean governments, we have obtained pressure cookers, anthrax, ricin, guns, bombs, H1N1, nuclear, biological, chemical, pork, sardine, Aladdin, chameleon, Stanford, Soros, cybercash, hate, garbage, market, black ops, FBI, Glock, Elvis, anonymous, sex codes, forced satellite imagery, Ninja 2600 magazine, clandestine, Scully, LLC, Echelon, Prism, dictionary. And now that I have the attention of the NSA, I just want to say that while the previous statement is complete bullshit, what follows is absolutely true. Your daughter's pussy tastes like fucking pixie sticks! Your wife still loves sucking cock, she just doesn't love you anymore! And your son, he's been grabbing his fucking ankles for the basketball team in the locker room at his fucking school! But don't worry about STDs, the joke's on them, because he's had AIDS since the priest fucked him in the Sunday school you put him in. Now stop spying on Americans and go find a real fucking job, you piece of shit!
One of these videos also includes Cantwell going to see his kids, only to see that Planned Parenthood has killed them.
So hey guys, today's Father's Day. Sunday I'm on my way to see my kids. And this is the first time I've seen them since I quit drinking, so I'm kind of excited. It's been 5 weeks today that I've been sober, and I'm going to see my kids for the first time since I stopped drinking, so I'm a little bit nervous, but I'm really excited. You know, it's almost like towards the end of an intervention episode where they're getting better. I mean, it's a really exciting thing, so I'm looking forward to seeing them. So here we are.
I don't really get this skit because the implication is that his kids are already born, and obviously abortion is the termination of a pregnancy. But it's interesting to note here that Cantwell is actually pro-life. In a blog entry, Cantwell explains that his pro-life position is influenced by his own life experiences. Specifically, Cantwell explains that he doesn't like using condoms, and so naturally has gotten many women pregnant, who in turn terminated the pregnancy in many cases because he was an unemployed drug user. Cantwell suggests that this had happened to him 5 times and that he feels a deep sense of loss. He has stated that abortion didn't stop him from being a parent, and instead he is the parent of 5 deceased children. In a similar vein, Cantwell would become more and more involved with anti-feminism and men's rights advocacy. In one video, Cantwell would approach a small group of feminist protesters who are holding up signs about rape culture. Making for a very difficult watch, Cantwell would verbally abuse them on the street.
We're done speaking to you now.
Okay, good. Then don't fucking speak. Stand there and shut the fuck up.
Looks like we've got a rape culture demonstration over here. I'm sure they're just chock full of, intellectual values, so I figured I'd go talk to them, try to get some education for myself, So if one of you whores goes to a frat party, gets drunk, and grabs a man by the dick, what happened then? No, I'm not gonna fucking leave you alone. You wanna come up here and spread communist fucking propaganda and redefine felony crimes and tell us that we're being fucking rapists because you get drunk at a party and grab somebody by the dick? Is that rape? If you get drunk and drag somebody by the fucking dick, are they a rapist?
I didn't say that.
So, you said they need a verbal yes. So if you grab somebody by the dick, that's not a verbal yes, is it?
If they don't give me a verbal yes, then I would be a rapist if I did that.
Okay,
yes,
so how many of you fucking whores grabbed somebody by the dick and went to jail?
I have never in my life done that.
No, you never have done that. I'm not going to fucking leave you alone. Why don't you get the fuck out of here? Why don't you go spread your commie horse shit somewhere else?
Will you please explain to me why this is communism?
Because it's a fucking nonsense horse shit idea that doesn't make any fucking sense. It's perpetual revolution. It's Trotskyite nonsense where you try to overturn the fucking genders. That's what you're doing. It has nothing to do with rape. Nobody over here is talking about it's okay to fucking rape women. Nobody does that. Nobody does that. You're making shit up, and you're changing the definition of rape to try to justify your fucking lunatic agenda. And it's horse shit, and you should all be fucking ashamed of yourselves, and any fucking man who comes anywhere near any one of you fucking slags is an idiot.
We're done speaking to you now.
Okay, good. Then don't fucking speak. Stand there and shut the fuck up. Because that's what you should have done in the first place. Nobody needs your stupid fucking asshole opinions. Fuck you. So go fuck yourselves, you stupid cunts.
I'm hoping the fucking police show up. But
a police car passed.
Stupid to keep on like arguing with them. They're not even saying anything back. It's just, I could just yell at them for fucking hours. Which, don't get me wrong, you know, it's basically what I do for 2 hours a day, 3 days a week.
Before 2014 came to a close, Cantwell would celebrate the deaths of 2 New York Police Department officers who were shot and killed. Later, the perpetrator of the crime would take their own life. In a blog post titled 3 More Violent Criminals Off the Street, Cantwell argued that the deceased officers deserved their fate in virtue of working for the state. Similarly, during Halloween of that year, Cantwell would dress up as a dead police officer with a fake gunshot wound on his forehead.
Anarchist, atheist, and a realist. If you ain't, then you probably different. There's social justices in the venture. Christopher Cantwell, radical agenda.
In April of 2015, Cantwell would rebrand from Some Garbage Podcast to Radical Agenda.
All right, on with it. Welcome to the Radical Agenda. It's a show about common sense extremism, and we talk about radical crazy, off-the-wall things, like destroying fucking liberals. Yes, this agenda is quite radical, and welcome to it.
This happened after Cantwell interviewed black libertarian author Walter E. Williams, believing that the title Some Garbage Podcast wasn't appropriate and that he was in need of a more serious brand. Ergo, Cantwell launched episode 1 of Radical Agenda, the subtitle of which being Common Sense Extremism. Soon after, while walking in the streets of Keene, New Hampshire, Cantwell witnessed a dispute in which a man and a woman were having an argument. Cantwell, claiming that he was worried that the situation would lead to violence, pulled out his phone and began recording the incident. This led to several men reprimanding Cantwell, demanding that he stop recording and calling him a creep. Cantwell refused to stop recording them, citing that he was within his legal rights, and as the men approached him, Cantwell would brandish his firearm, causing the men to back down under the threat of being shot.
Stay away from me. Stay away from me. I'm not screwing around. Stay away from me. Hey! You stay away from me. Stay the fuck away from me.
You know, it's illegal.
It's not illegal to record people. Hey! 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 I'm not getting in a fight with you, stupid. I got a gun on my hip. Get the fuck away from me. Get the fuck away from me. Get the fuck away from me. Get the fuck back. I am just trying to make sure nobody gets hurt. You do not come after me. Don't come any closer. Get the fuck away from me.
All right, we're all done.
Get back in your car. Get the fuck out of here.
We're all done. Yo, first of all, you don't pull a gun.
Get the fuck away from me, stupid. Don't come any closer.
I'm right here, buddy. You don't shoot me. You're not a cop, bro.
Nick, just go. We're done. Get in the fucking car. I don't want to hurt nobody. I'm telling you. Get the fuck away from me, man.
Please delete that video. You have no reason.
I don't want to fucking show anybody anything. Officer, I'm putting it down. I'm putting it down. I'm putting it down. I swear to God, man, these guys came after me. My hands are up. My gun is over there. I'm stepping away from my gun, okay?
Just keep your hands over there.
Okay. You tell me what to do. I'm complying with you. I don't want any trouble. That phone's recording.
Stay right here.
Your phone is? That's my phone right there.
That's fine. Chris, relax.
Yeah.
Is that yours?
Yes.
I mean, just pick it up.
Okay.
Anything else? No. I have a pepper spray in my pocket, but I'm just going to patch your pockets. Okay, go ahead. Right it. What's going on? So...
And after reviewing the footage recorded on his phone, the police let Cantwell go without incident. Despite not being charged, this event would contribute greatly to Cantwell's negative reputation as a volatile trouble seeker and agent of chaos. After the controversy subsided, Cantwell would continue his radical agenda show, which was mostly formatted by an intro section where Cantwell read out his articles or ranted about libertarian subjects, before continuing with a call-in segment for the remainder of the show. The rebrand would coincide with the beginning of the 2016 presidential election, and as Donald Trump began to dominate the primaries and appear as the Republican nominee, Cantwell's politics would begin shifting to the far right. For example, by September 2015, Cantwell would make an appearance on The Daily Shower, a white nationalist podcast that is named after the Hebrew word for the Holocaust. In it, Cantwell gives no pushback and refers to immigrants as hordes of unwashed religious fanatics, foreshadowing the show's evolution.
An unadulterated right to travel upon, and that I don't think would exist in a proprietarian anarcho-capitalist society. People would own roads and shit, and they'd be like, "Look, you have no resources. Sorry, hordes of unwashed fucking masses and your lunatic religious ideas. Stay the fuck out of my property." Instead of the United States.
As long as you say fucking every 3 or 4 words, you say fucking Cantwell. Radical agenda.
I need to get in the Cantwell mindset to do my Cantwell impression. I haven't done it in a while. Do a little James Cagney thing there. Look, this fucking asshole. These assholes put me in a fucking cage, all right? And you can't even spend $10 fucking to support your fucking race every month? What the fuck are you doing? What the fuck kind of Jew are you, all right? I'm going to call you a because that's what you are, all right? If you're not spending $10 to fight for your fucking race, I spent 4 months in a fucking cage surrounded by these fucking and assholes, all right? So, I don't know what you're doing. Support the fucking white nationalist movement, all right? You fucking cookies.
Oh my god, that was so good.
Yeah, there we go. Dueling Cantwells.
The build-up to the 2016 election in the US was an important time in American politics. It was an election uniquely situated around issues of race and gender. Black Lives Matter had gained a lot of momentum, and there was national outrage over several high-profile cases in which a black person was killed by police. Cantwell would often push back on these concerns, defending the police officers in these high-profile cases, and stating things like black people are in prison at higher rates than whites because they are less intelligent.
The reason I got involved in white nationalism was because the Democratic Party and the left more broadly wants to just do all this race-baiting nonsense and say that everybody who wants gun rights and low taxes is a racist, right? And so I'm like, okay, well, if that's really how we're going to have this thing, then fine, I will respond with exactly that. I will say, fine, then all of us racists want gun rights and low taxes, so get the fuck out of my territory.
Right.
Cantwell's focus would shift away from decrying the police and government employees to targeting multiculturalism, black people, feminists, and eventually the Jews.
Jews have cornered the whole internet, and I really think the only way we'll have any freedom of speech is if someone teaches them a lesson. Remember how there wasn't another Ruby Ridge or Waco after Temi lit up the Murrah building? People in power only learn one way.
Well, you know what? I think that is a remarkably accurate statement. And
yeah, it's a truthful commentary on the nature of power and what powerful people respond to. I'm not telling anybody to go blow up a building full of Jews. That's ridiculous. That's not what that statement does.
Not that we're going to hold it against him or anything. I'm kidding. Go ahead.
It's no different than Thomas Jefferson saying something that was actually legally arguably less protected, right? He said that the tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. And that's a totally also completely protected statement, right? But there's a level of urgency there, and that he's saying must, right? And I'm not saying must. I'm not saying, you must go up and blow up buildings full of Jews. I'm just saying that if you want free speech, there are a certain class of people that have been the sole actors against it, and historically the only way that powerful people have backed off of violating people's rights is one way and one way only, and it ain't sunshine and rainbows.
During this time, the alt-right was becoming more and more popular on YouTube. In 2015 and 2016, there were very few substantial left-of-center content creators outside of major news networks. compilations of feminists being destroyed with facts and logic went viral.
Trigger warning. This is Ben Shapiro, Thug Life. The Thug Life chose me.
While also many libertarians began gravitating towards far-right ideas. Figures like Stefan Molyneux would begin espousing the Great Replacement conspiracy and race realism. Many libertarians turning to the alt-right would also begin circulating the physical removal meme. This was a reference to libertarian author Hans Hermann Hoppe and his notion that in an anarcho-capitalist society, private property owners would basically evict people spreading leftism or redistribution from their communities. More commonly, however, the meme was associated with Chilean dictator Augusto Pinochet and his use of death flights against communist opposition, in which civilians were thrown from helicopters and killed. Cantwell would routinely make comments about physically removing people on the left, giving them helicopter rides, and referencing right-wing death squads.
My ideal situation would be the abolition of the state where the left has no access to a democratic process by which to elect a government. Short of that, so long as there is going to exist, I am all for, I am an aspiring helicopter pilot for the Pinochet administration. Throw these people out of helicopters, do what you have to stop them, because they will destroy us.
Where has all the freedom gone, and where is all the gold? Where's the rights we used to know, like keep and bearing arms? Isn't there a leader, restore prosperity? Late at night the blacks run wild and I see white people flee. I need a Pinochet. I need a Pinochet, free up all the markets tonight. Privatize industry, open up trade, and sentence the leftists to die. I need a Pinochet. I need a Pinochet, massive repeals overnight. Stop the inflation, stabilize currency, sentence the leftists to die. All leftists die.
As Trump's presidential bid gained momentum, Cantwell's transformation from libertarian to white nationalist accelerated, with his podcast increasingly incorporating anti-immigrant, anti-Semitic, and white nationalist themes. As the election continued, Cantwell began framing Trump as a bulwark against political correctness and multiculturalism. He would also begin referencing anti-Semitic conspiracy theorists like Kevin MacDonald, an alleged evolutionary psychologist who believes Jews are subverting white societies as a parasitic reproductive strategy. Cantwell would host alt-right figures on his show, such as Richard Spencer, Matthew Heimbach, and Weave. Eventually, Cantwell cast his vote for Trump, later describing him as a god emperor and fantasizing about Trump authorizing right-wing death squads and communist hunting licenses via executive order. His intro theme would also change, consisting now of heavy metal music with audio of Cantwell threatening his dissenters with what sounds like a systematic genocide. It should be apparent now that Chris can't stop threatening people with violence. Well.
Violence and deception are his only weapons, and he uses them like a conservative uses books. So what conservative would adopt the tactics of a filthy communist? A conservative who is sick and tired of losing his country to people who have no standards and realizes that there will be no such thing as righteousness if he does not prevail in a conflict. At what point do we realize that peace and meritocratic competition are no longer on our list of options? At what point do we begin physically removing Democrats and communists to establish and maintain the libertarian social order necessary for our desired meritocracy? If the answer is not now, then we might as well throw in the towel and forfeit to the communists today. We are losing massive ground each moment. Non-white immigration and breeding alone are rapidly diminishing what electoral majorities we have remaining. Jewish influence disarms us in the left's onslaught of identity politics. Our universities teach little more than the propaganda of our enemies to our children, and we are compelled to subsidize it all with our own earnings under penalty of imprisonment and death for refusal.
As Cantwell descended into the far right, Cantwell would no longer appear like an overweight man. Instead, he developed a significant amount of muscle mass in a very short time, talking a lot about his time spent in the gym. This might sound like a positive development, but Cantwell would admit he was abusing steroids, in addition to the cocktail of other drugs he was taking.
Other than the steroids and the modafinil that I mentioned earlier, the stimulant I take before the show. So I got back on the steroids in a time frame that was not medically advisable, shall we say. I had just finished my PCT, my post-cycle therapy, and I started to take DECA and testosterone and the estrogen inhibitors, which I'll probably remark upon them in greater detail another time.
It's probably worth addressing now that despite his posturing as a pro-life, pro-masculinity nationalist, Cantwell would be abusing illicit drugs throughout this time, including meth and crack. Specifically, Christopher Methwell mentioned buffing methamphetamines in the past, which is slang for absorbing the drug through your rectal cavity. In the run-up to the election, the possibility of Hillary Clinton winning the presidency would cause a lot of anxiety for Cantwell. Like a normal and healthy individual, this would lead him to relapse on methamphetamines. In December of 2016, after Trump had been elected, Cantwell would record a 10-hour episode while high on the drug. The episode was released in 2-hour sections, in which Cantwell can be heard pleading with his audience regarding his relapse. Cantwell would also admit to spending the money donated to him by viewers on drugs.
I guess what I'm trying to say is thank you very much for giving me money, and I'm very, very fucking sorry that I spent it on drugs. I feel like a dick about that. Because of this, fucking sticking myself with needles, I believe. Anyway, I haven't seen a fucking doctor in decades, but I believe it is due to the fact that I have fucked up my circulation, sticking myself hundreds of times in the course of a fucking day. 3, I don't even know. Over and over and over again, repetitively with fucking methamphetamine and cocaine, my old friend. That meth is fucking screaming in my fucking ears right now. I'm not, again, I told you earlier that I'm not presently under the influence of it, but I'm staring at the fucking little bag of shards on my desk. And it's fucking screaming at me. Go ahead, smoke me, psychopath. And put me up your ass. Put it in a needle and fucking put it in your veins. It should take your fucking route of administration. They did that too. Put it up that fucking asshole, Christ. And I've smoked a lot of crack. I've done a good amount of crack in my day. You may have heard me remark about my needle affliction. But I got to tell you, like even smoking crack, like you take a hit of crack, and you're like, that felt really good, and you stop for like 10 seconds. You don't even fucking, like the meth, I mean, maybe you do, I don't know, I'm not telling you what you do, but I can't stop. Like, I don't even take a complete fucking exhale before I fucking hit that thing again. You ever been too tired to masturbate? I went through that the other day. I took a bunch of fucking drugs that was probably actually right after the previous recording as well. And I had taken a bunch of mushrooms, meth, ecstasy. I lose track of the time. That was not yesterday, whatever it was. I decided, I feel very good right now, so maybe, the ecstasy will stop my penis from working. It's just fucking fine when I'm not doing that drug. But I do have Viagra's here. Saddest little help of that. And I took a fucking Viagra. I was laying in bed, and it felt very fucking good to please myself with my little pocket pussy there. And but I didn't even have the energy to do it. I'm like, how pathetic am I? I'm too lazy to jerk off.
Despite all of this, Can't Stop Buffing Methwell would begin to position himself as a masculine figure. On a public dating profile, he would specify exactly how masculine he is and what he was looking for. Under the username It'sChris603, His dating profile would read the following. My self-summary. I'm a man. I do not mean the generic male college liberal nonsense that passes for masculinity today. I mean a real man. I pride myself on being better than others, so I value accomplishment and view egalitarians as a plague on the civilization. Seeing as to how I'm a man, I would very much like to find a woman. I am in search of beauty, femininity, fertility, love, and caring. What I'm doing with my life. A while back, I decided I wanted greatness, so I set out to achieve it. So far, so good. I go to the gym daily, I podcast for a living 3 days a week. If I'm honest with you, that's about it right now. You can also see that Cantwell mentions on his profile that he never smokes, doesn't drink, doesn't do drugs, which we have already seen to be a lie. His profile continues, I'm really good at I am a professional communicator. I write and speak for a living. I would not be able to do this without an extraordinary ability to comprehend complex things. The first things people usually notice about me. I should probably start asking people this question. I haven't the vaguest idea. Favorite books, movies, shows, music, and food. Favorite book, Democracy, the God That Failed by Hans Hermann Hoppe. Favorite movie, The Matrix. Favorite show, House of Cards. Food, yes. The 6 things I could never do without. Literally food, water, air, shelter, human relationships, sunlight. Oh, we were trying to be witty. Money, car, phone, internet, guns, attention. I spend a lot of time thinking about my next big accomplishment. On a typical Friday night, I wish I could provide a more interesting answer, but right now, my life has been pretty dull on purpose. I'm usually home. The most private thing I'm willing to admit. That wouldn't be very private at all, now would it? You should message me if you are white, in reasonably good shape, value intelligence, and are serious about getting married and having kids, but reasonable enough to know a relationship begins on a much less serious footing. By 2017, Cantwell had completely repositioned himself as a fascist and white nationalist. The same year, the Unite the Right rally would take place, in which Cantwell was booked as a speaker. Since the Charleston church shooting, where white supremacist Dylan Roof killed 9 members of a black church, in addition to growing public concern about race relations, many local governments began removing Confederate statues from public spaces, often receiving backlash from those who viewed this as an attack on their heritage. Furthermore, in 2017, Charlottesville City Council made the decision to remove a statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee, which led to members of the alt-right organizing a protest in response called Unite the Right, that would last 2 days and 1 night, in which an infamous tiki torch procession would take place. The rally resulted in a violent clash between protesters and counter-protesters, a state of emergency being declared, and the National Guard being called. In the end, white nationalist James Alex Fields Jr. deliberately drove his car into a crowd of counter-protesters, killing 32-year-old Heather Heyer and injuring 35 others. The event is widely considered a tragedy and disaster by people across the political spectrum, although maybe for different reasons. During these events, Cantwell would become one of the most notorious participants. Cantwell marched in the rally, being filmed chanting, "Jews will not replace us." Later, he was interviewed for the Vice News Tonight documentary, Charlottesville, Race and Terror, where he made many incriminating statements.
So when did you get into, as you said, the racial stuff?
When Trayvon Martin case happened, Michael Brown and Tamir Rice and all these different things happen, every single case, it's some little black asshole behaving like a savage, and he gets himself in trouble, shockingly enough. Whatever problems I might have with my fellow white people, they generally are not inclined to such behavior, and you gotta kind of take that into consideration when you're thinking about how to organize your society. Carrying a pistol, I go to the gym all the time. I'm trying to make myself more capable of violence. I'm here to spread ideas, talk, in the hopes that somebody more capable will come along and do that. Somebody like Donald Trump, who does not give his daughter to a Jew.
So Donald Trump, but like more racist.
A lot more racist than Donald Trump. I don't think that you could feel about race the way I do and watch that Kushner bastard walk around with that beautiful girl, okay?
You're the true nonviolent protesters.
I'm not even saying we're nonviolent. I'm saying that we didn't aggress. We did not initiate force against anybody. We're not nonviolent. We'll fucking kill these people if we have to.
He would also invite Vice News into his hotel, where he can be seen showing off his firearms, clearly taking glee in the attention that he is getting.
All right, so I came pretty well prepared for this thing today. Kel-Tec P3AT, 380 ACP, Glock 19, 9mm, Ruger LC9, also 9mm. And, and there's a knife. Well, I actually have another AK in that bag over there. You lose track of your fucking guns, huh? I'd say it was worth it. We knew that we were going to meet a lot of resistance. The fact that nobody on our side died, I'd go ahead and call that points for us. The fact that none of our people killed anybody unjustly, I think, is a plus for us. And I think that we showed our rivals that we won't be cowed.
I mean, someone died.
I think that a lot more people are going to die before we're done here, frankly. Like, this is part of the reason that we want an ethno state, right? So, like, the blacks are killing each other in staggering numbers from coast to coast. We don't really want to have a part of that anymore. And so, the fact that they resist us when we say, hey, we want a homeland, is not shocking to me, all right? These people want violence, and the right is just meeting market demand.
As tensions escalated between protesters and counter-protesters, violence would break out between the two groups. Many point to the lack of police preparation for such an event, including in a report by US Attorney Timothy Heaphy, commissioned by the city. The report found that the state and local police used different radio systems, being unable to communicate with each other, and Unite the Right participants arrived with shields, bats, guns, and pepper spray, and such a large, armed group was outside the training of Charlottesville police. The police funneled protesters and counter-protesters together, likely in an attempt to safeguard the rest of the city. This, of course, made violence between the two groups basically inevitable, and by 11:22 a.m., after receiving, quote, credible intelligence of unlawful weapons and potential for widespread violence, the gathering was deemed an unlawful assembly, and Governor McAuliffe declared a state of emergency. Dozens of people would be arrested from both sides, including several high-profile Unite the Right participants who would be charged with the most serious crimes, including pre-rally planning and conspiracy via chats and emails to incite riots against counter-protesters. And of course, one such member of the Unite the Right was charged with murder. Regardless of what permits they may have to organize, these people showed up with weapons, brandishing swastikas, and had months of messages about how leftists deserve to die, and LARPing as if they are going to battle, and yet was surprised by the unfavorable outcome, decrying the police as belonging to a Jewish conspiracy against them. One such person to be arrested and charged at the rally was Christopher Cantwell. Cantwell would attack activists Emily Gosensky and Christopher Goad with pepper spray, both of whom contacted local law enforcement, who subsequently put out a warrant for Cantwell's arrest. After learning this, Cantwell would post a video of himself weeping in a hotel room.
I contacted the local police. I called the Charlottesville Police Department, and I asked them, I said, I have been told that there's a warrant out for my arrest. And they said that they wouldn't confirm it, but that I could find this out if I, that I could find this out if I wanted to go to a local magistrate or something like that. But with everything that's happening, I don't think it's wise for me to be, going anywhere. There's a state of emergency. The National Guard is here. So I don't think it's a good idea for me to go there, frankly. And I don't know what to do. I've emailed Stephen Tenney of the Keene Police Department. Sorry. I have emailed Stephen Tenney of the Keene Police Department. He's one of the cops who came there. He's one of the cops who saved my ass when I had to pull my gun in Keene. And I emailed him and I said, I don't know what to do. I need guidance. I want to be peaceful. I want to be law-abiding. Okay, that was the whole entire point of this. And I'm watching CNN talk about this as violent white nationalist protests. We have done everything in our power to keep this peaceful. I know we talk a lot of shit on the internet, right? But literally, Jason Kessler applied for a permit months ago for this, okay? When they yanked our permit, we went to the ACLU and we went to court and we won. We've been coordinating with law enforcement the entire time. Every step of the way, we've tried to do the right thing. And they just won't stop, We have done everything in our power. We have used every peaceful and lawful means by which to redress our grievances.
And our enemies just will not stop. We've been fucking assaulted. They are threatening us all over the place. Chelsea Manning, this tranny fanatic, has a picture of herself, talking about curb-stomping Nazis with a picture of his boot coming down on somebody. We are trying to make this peaceful. We are trying to be law-abiding, and our enemies will not stop. What options do we have left? If somebody would like to inform me of that, then I will be grateful to you. I really will. I guess that's basically it. I don't know what else to say. Again, you know what? I'll just say it here. 631-791-5842. If law enforcement wants me to turn myself in, or they want to know my location, all they have to do is call that number, okay? And if we can set up a means of communication where I can verify that you're the police, I will go to the police station or wherever you tell me to go, or if I can confirm that you are in fact law enforcement, I will give you my location and I will let you come and get me, okay? I'm armed. I do not want violence with you, all right? I'm terrified. I'm afraid you're going to kill me. I really am, all right? So just let's do this however we need to do it, If I got to go to jail today, it won't be the fucking first time, all right? I don't want to. I don't think I should. I think I honestly believe that I've been law-abiding, and I've been engaged in violence. I have. There's no question about it, and I've done nothing to hide that. But it was done in defense of myself and others. And I would not have done it for any other reason. And by the way, if University of Virginia was not a gun-free zone and I had my pistol, I would have stayed far away from that goddamn melee, okay? When I do not have a weapon on me, I feel it necessary to stop threats before they get out of hand, okay? When I have my weapon, I'm cool as a cucumber, folks. I do not fucking fight with people. You would have heard about it by now, right? If I was a violent guy, you would have heard about it by now. Everybody in their mother wants to fucking ruin my life, okay? And if I wanted violence, it's not a difficult thing for a guy like me to find, okay? So, yeah. There we go. All right, maybe I'll be back later. I don't know. I'm sorry for anybody who's waiting on a live episode of Radical Agenda, but I think you can understand, the situation I'm in. Yeah, we'll go from there. All right. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks everybody. I'll try to keep you informed. Thanks.
The clip earned him the Crying Nazi moniker and received over 1 million views. Due to the juxtaposition between this video of Cantwell crying and the Vice documentary where he claimed to be ready for violence, Cantwell would be mocked by many media outlets and effectively become the face of the Unite the Right rally.
We talk a lot of shit on the internet. No, you guys terrorize people on the internet, okay? So you guys dox people that you disagree with, you threaten them with violence, you threaten women with rape, you threaten men with, we're gonna show up and gun you down. This is the kind of stuff that they do on the internet on a regular basis. And then now all of a sudden there's a warrant out for your arrest and oh my God, are you afraid? Are you afraid of the cops? Are you worried that the cops are gonna come get you?
In the video, Cantwell clearly can't take accountability for his constant violent rhetoric that has spanned back for years. He says, "We say some shit on the internet," and minimizes his actions short of saying, "I was just kidding, bro."
Said that she's hoping for a civil war because the other alternative appears to be genocidal violence, right? Like, that's, like you can have one or you can have the other, and it's just, and it's really, like, I really do see your side of things, and I know you're getting emotional right now because it's...
No, I don't want that to happen, you know what I'm saying? I really fucking don't. That's what people are acting like I'm trying to cause that, and I'm really fucking trying to prevent it, and it fucking really upsets me, I'm sorry.
There is a Schrödinger-style paradox about white nationalists who claim to be illiberal, against democracy, and support political violence against those who disagree with them. Then, when they are subjected to the law, they cry out about free speech and persecution, despite also being offered the due process that they would not afford others if they had the chance. Make no mistake, there was no change of heart coming from Cantwell. Around the same time, Cantwell would post an image on his Facebook page of James Fields running into a crowd of counter-protesters with the text, "This is what democracy looks like." He would also post, "If you think the alt-right is insignificant, you might want to ask the bleeding commie filth we send to the morgue and hospitals how insignificant we are." Cantwell would also begin selling shirts on his merch store with a Dodge Challenger on them, a reference to the car James Fields was driving. This, of course, in addition to his other shirts depicting people being thrown out of helicopters. Cantwell would be indicted for 3 felonies, 2 counts of illegal use of tear gas or similar substances, and 1 count of malicious bodily injury with a caustic substance. Cantwell would plead guilty to 2 misdemeanor assault and battery counts and be sentenced to 2 years probation and a 5-year ban from Virginia. Cantwell claims that Gorchensky and Goad were not the individuals he pepper sprayed and that they are lying, although he does admit pepper spraying somebody. Cantwell and his followers believe he was being targeted for his political views by the courts, and the case against him was part of a conspiracy. Also, Cantwell's lawyer would wear Revolutionary War attire while defending him. Mutton chops and all, really just removing the seriousness from Cantwell's case. Nonetheless, while in jail, Cantwell would resume recording the Radical Agenda podcast. As a result of all of this, Cantwell would be banned from almost all social media platforms, including Facebook and YouTube. Even OkCupid banned Cantwell after a user reported his profile. The company tweeting, "There is no room for hate in a place where you're looking for love." Cantwell would end up being cut off from PayPal, Venmo, Stripe, Twitter, MailChimp, and dating sites like Match.com and Tinder. During this time, many alt-right accounts were being removed from crowdfunding platforms, so far-right figures began making their own platforms to raise funds. This typically resulted in web providers, cloud protection, or transaction services pooling their services. Similarly, Cantwell would make bail by raising funds online, specifically through the now defunct sites Patreon and GoFundMe, websites parodying the well-known crowdfunding sites Patreon and GoFundMe. In 2018, after having pled guilty to the aforementioned charges, the court also barred Cantwell from mentioning the names of the activists he pepper sprayed in public. But only days after pleading guilty, Cantwell would subtly refer to them as cunts and trannies and imply they were going to be gassed, and as a result, Cantwell was ordered to pay a fine. In addition to these charges, 9 Charlottesville residents filed a suit against over 24 defendants, including Cantwell and organizers of the rally. The suit alleged conspiracy to commit racially motivated violence under the Ku Klux Klan Act and Civil Rights Act. In the trial, Cantwell represented himself and in a pleading included a written quote from Adolf Hitler. He also nonchalantly admitted under questioning that he has thought about committing a mass shooting before. The jury reached a verdict in 2021, finding him and every other defendant liable on state conspiracy claims, and over $25 million in damages were awarded to the plaintiff. Also, during Cantwell's trial, he would be arrested again for public swearing and intoxication. While Cantwell was being investigated by the police and FBI, he would announce to his audience that he was cooperating and handing over information to them, acting as an informant. This would lead members of the alt-right to accuse Cantwell of being a rat, speculating that he had been a federal asset this whole time. In response, Cantwell would publish an article called "Why I'm Talking to the Feds," where he would basically state that he was trying to get as many counter-protesters indicted as possible. This cooperation with the FBI and the police would end very badly for Cantwell. 1, because the police often make false promises to excite someone into being an informant, and number 2, it would ruin his reception from his far-right peers, as we will soon see. Despite all the trouble Cantwell's violent rhetoric had caused him, his threats would only escalate in the coming years. Gab would become a major social media site for Cantwell. Gab was an alt-tech social media site that became popular amongst far-right figures who had been banned from larger platforms like Twitter. Cantwell would celebrate Gab after his bannings, believing he was safe from moderation there and could post his violent rhetoric without consequences. Cantwell would begin promoting a game called Angry Goy 2, where you could kill minorities and progressives, basically using the game to qualify what sounded like real threats of violence against these groups, similar to the In Minecraft meme today. A New York Times reporter named Hillary Sargent would cover the incident, which led to Cantwell posting multiple times on Gab about her being raped, shot in the face, and contracting the AIDS virus. Cantwell would continue to post about wanting to kill different groups, particularly the Jews, and this would lead to Rob Monster, Gab's owner, telling him to delete certain posts. Cantwell would post publicly about the exchange and say he was happy to do so and wanted to be accommodating. However, he would still sign off this statement by saying that the problem was, quote, the Jews and their degenerate mongrel pets. In 2019, after the deadly New Zealand mosque shooting committed by Brenton Tarrant, he posted, quote, I'm pretty sure it would be against the rules for me to say that would-be mass shooters should find left-wing activists and gun them down instead of random people in mosques and synagogues, so I won't do that. If you killed the 50 loudest leftists in the United States, especially if you didn't get caught and continued killing, these people would shut their stupid fucking asshole mouths. This would result in his Gab account being banned. To this day, Cantwell is one of the only accounts with a large following to be banned on the platform, which basically serves as a refuge for far-right users who have been banned from elsewhere. After his ordeal at the Unite the Right rally, another white nationalist group called Bowl Patrol would seek to troll Cantwell by prank calling his live shows, impersonating him, and posting fake articles, as well as accusing him of being a federal asset and Zionist. Bowl Patrol could upload articles onto his site, as Cantwell had given them login details in the past as contributors. The name Bowl Patrol is a reference to the bowl cut hairstyle, a far-right dog whistle and meme that resulted from white supremacist shooter Dylan Roof. The leader of Bowl Patrol went by the pseudonym Vic Mackey, a reference to the TV show The Shield. As a result of their constant trolling, Vic Mackey would become Cantwell's main nemesis. Not helping the rat allegations, Cantwell would contact Jared Holt from Right Wing Watch, a website dedicated to documenting and exposing far-right groups and figures. In an email with the subject "fucking over Nazis," Cantwell would share information with Holt to try to get back at his enemies in the movement. Cantwell would set his sights on another Bowl Patrol member named Cheddarmain. He would then threaten Cheddarmain, stating that unless he revealed Vic Mackey's docs, Cantwell would fuck his wife. He also stated that one of his incel listeners would love to give her another baby. Then, Cantwell would send Cheddarmain a photo of his wife and young children, as well as their home address, telling Cheddarmain, if you don't give me Vic Mackey, I will destroy your life. Cheddarmain told Cantwell he didn't know Vic Mackey's identity, and in response, Cantwell contacted Child Protective Services and alleged Cheddarmain had drugs in the household. In September 2019, Cantwell met with the FBI thinking he was helping to form a case against the Bowl Patrol members. Basically, he was looking to snitch on them to the feds after an already lengthy period of collaborating with law enforcement. However, the FBI were actually forming a case to prosecute Cantwell for his threats against the members of Bowl Patrol, and Cantwell would end up incriminating himself to the FBI. Cantwell would be indicted on one count of transmitting extortionate communications and one count of threatening to injure property or reputation. The charges stem directly from his messages to Cheddarmain, with the indictment citing threats of rape, doxing, and harm to family members. FBI agents arrested Cantwell at his home in Keene, New Hampshire. A search warrant executed during the arrest resulted in a seizure of 17 firearms, ammunition, body armor, and high-capacity magazines. A federal judge denied bail on February 26, 2020, citing him as a flight risk and danger to the community due to his violent rhetoric and prior convictions. In a 4-day jury trial in the U.S. District Court for the District of New Hampshire, Cantwell was convicted on both counts. The U.S. Attorney Scott W. Murray emphasized Cantwell's hateful beliefs are protected, but his threats to harm are not. Cantwell's defense argued it was a, quote, troll war within the alt-right, claiming his threats were hyperbolic and protected speech. The jury rejected this, finding the threats constituted extortion. Christopher Can't Stay Out of Jail Well was sentenced to 41 months in federal prison, with credit for time served, plus 3 years of supervised release. He was also ordered to pay an undisclosed amount in restitution to Cheddarmain. Cantwell was released to a halfway house after serving approximately 35 months. Reports emerged, including from Right Wing Watch, that he continued cooperating with federal authorities, providing information on far-right groups like Bowl Patrol. This fueled further distrust from the alt-right, with Bowl Patrol and others continuing to mock him as a snitch. What's interesting is that Cantwell got in so much trouble over trying to dox individuals that would be doxed by the police only months after the threats were made. In typical Nazi fashion, Vic Mackey turned out to be a 20-something-year-old Hispanic pizza delivery driver who lived with his parents. Authorities would then subject them to red flag laws, limiting their ability to own a firearm.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is Surreal Politiques, Stage 1, Episode 2.
After Cantwell was released from prison, he would rebrand his podcast from Radical Agenda to Surreal Politics. Surprisingly, it seemed like Cantwell was toning down the rhetoric and trying to develop more mainstream appeal.
The Outlaw Conservative Podcast is a live, open-phones, conservative talk radio entertainment program which we do our best to make suitable for listening to at work or in the presence of young children. Thusly, we will hang up on and edit out callers who curse, advocate violence, make racist statements, or reference anatomical functions which generally require privacy.
Cantwell had also tried launching a new podcast called Outlaw Conservative too, explaining that Radical Agenda had been holding him back. You might be wondering, could Cantwell, of all people, actually rescue his public image after years of being a neo-Nazi, constantly threatening anyone who looked at him the wrong way with rape and murder? Well, unfortunately, not long after the rebrand, Cantwell was arrested on one count of felony strangulation and sent right back to jail. Allegedly, the strangulation was due to Cantwell being the victim of a break-in. Later, he actually gave an interview to The Independent. Quote, "I didn't strangle anyone," he argued. People who are trying to cause legal problems for other people know that they can escalate a misdemeanor to a felony by saying strangulation occurred. Cantwell also said, quote, "This is New Hampshire, not North Korea, and I have every right to physically remove someone from my home when they refuse to leave upon being ordered to do so." Cantwell went on. He said the person, quote, "refused multiple verbal commands to leave while raising his voice to disturb neighbors and escalate the conflict. I used the absolute minimum amount of force that I could to remove a trespasser who physically resisted my attempts to remove him," end quote. In 2019, Cantwell went to see the movie Joker in theaters. For those who don't remember, Joker was released amidst a moral panic about the incel community, as there had been several incel mass shooters around this time, while also, the Joker was a character often appropriated by the incel community themselves. I have a video on my channel about an incel YouTuber who literally went by the black-pilled Joker. But nonetheless, some authorities expressed concern about some kind of shooting or violent event taking place upon the release of the film. On his Telegram, Cantwell would post that he had brought a gun to the movie, which naturally led to him being arrested by police. In response, Cantwell would claim that he had been set up. He would start becoming more and more paranoid, believing that he was being targeted. He would post on his Telegram that he was being harassed and stalked by organized crime, believing that people were deliberately moving into his apartment block to cause trouble, including playing loud music and being disruptive, in an attempt to lure him into doing something that might get him arrested again. Many onlookers drew equivalences between Cantwell's claims and gang stalking, leading to more ridicule. Likewise, Cantwell would begin updating his Telegram, saying that he was being followed, and furthermore that he was going after the culprit to see what they were doing. Supposedly, this alleged follower would have a car collision with Cantwell.
Hey, I got a new request. If anybody's in Massachusetts, one of these lunatics crashed into the back of my car, and my insurance has lapsed. And so, I'm not allowed to drive the car out of here. They're going to tow it. I need somebody to come pick me up. If anybody's in a position to do that, please let me know. Direct message me at Chris Cantwell. Don't put it in the comments, all right? Thanks.
Which resulted in Cantwell being charged yet again, but this time for possessing methamphetamines in his car, and as a result, he would spend the night in jail.
Hey guys, I was out earlier today, and I was following one of the people who were following me, okay? And sure enough, someone who was following me, and that person then followed me right into the back of my car and crashed into it. And so you saw me earlier, I was asking for money to try to get my car insurance paid up because in Massachusetts it's a crime to drive without insurance. And then they decided they were going to inventory the car because they were going to tow the car. Now, I paid the insurance before they towed the car, but while they were towing the car, they say they found something in the trunk of the car. And the first they tell me it's not a big deal, I'm going to be out of here in a little while. And now they're telling me that I've got a bunch of really serious charges and it's $5,000 to get me out of here by 5 a.m. or I go to see a judge at 8 a.m. If somebody wants to come down to Auburn, Mass. with $5,000 and get me the fuck out of here, I'll be real happy about it. If not, I kind of doubt that that's going to be the case. But that's what's going on. If anybody, keep an eye out for me if not. All right? Thanks.
And as a result, he would spend the night in jail. At this point, Cantwell was claiming that his alleged stalkers rammed his car to instigate a police response, and then the stalkers and/or police planted drugs in his car, which even the few followers he had left were finding hard to believe. Cantwell's Telegram messages would descend into constant paranoid speculation about who was following him, alleging certain people had been trying to set him up for the last 8 years. But things would only get more bizarre.
When I was in the 3rd grade, I thought that I was gay. 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 That I was gay. 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 That I was gay. 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 Gay.
I have a dream.
In September of 2025, Cantwell would update his Telegram to explain that for roughly 2 years, he had been having sex with various men that he had met through the gay dating app Grindr. Cantwell would go on to explain that this wasn't the first time he had had sex with a man either, and that he had been having sex with men in some capacity since he was a teenager. There is a bit of inconsistency with this. He says that he had been on Grindr for the last 2 years, but later on we will see Cantwell claim to have been on Grindr as far back as 2014. But nonetheless, in this 2-year sprint, Cantwell claimed that he had had sex with 50 to 100 sexual partners, including having oral sex with 3 different men in one day. Cantwell would go on to explain that he had contracted gonorrhea and that the men who gave it to him were deliberately trying to spread STDs because they opposed his political views, conforming to the gang stalking narrative. Cantwell believes that his enemies are trying to give him AIDS through sending their strongest twinks to have voluntary gay sex with him. Cantwell would also state that he had met a 23-year-old man who had developed a sexual relationship with him. Cantwell, knowing that his career as a Nazi podcaster had been over for a while now, created a plan with the young man to start writing gay erotica, beginning a new career for himself. Cantwell wrote a gay erotica story about their first encounter entitled Saving Myself for Marriage, kinda. Intending to share it with the man, Cantwell would instead be ghosted. The man disappeared, and Cantwell was hurt. Fearing that he might be outed as a homosexual, Cantwell would share his writing anyway, writing under the name Rick Greiner, stating that he was still very proud of his work. The short story begins with the following. Dear reader, thanks for reading my first attempt at writing erotica and romantic fiction. I made this PDF available to a limited number of people, largely for promotional purposes. As Rick Greiner, I have no reputation as a writer yet, so it cannot hurt for people to get a glimpse of my work. I don't mind so much if you want to share it with your friends, but please keep in mind that this is not a free book to be distributed publicly. I hold the copyright there too. My name is not really Rick Greiner, that is a pen name I assumed for this purpose. I've been writing in other genres professionally for a very long time, and have cause to believe I am pretty good at it. Whether or not I am good in this genre is up to you, but the feedback thus far has been overwhelmingly positive, for which I am very grateful. Having stated at the beginning of this introduction that this is romantic fiction, I might clarify that most fictional stories have an element of truth to them. This story is no different in that respect. Some of the people I give this file to will have a better idea what I mean by that than others, but for now it must suffice to say that I am neither so low a creature as to tell the world intimate details about my sex partners, nor creative enough to have made this up off the top of my head. Perhaps a time will arrive when I can be more specific publicly. In closing, a bit of non-fiction I'll share with you after having learnt it the hard way. Sex is a big deal, don't let anybody convince you otherwise. Enjoy the read. The story very much parallels the events of Cantwell's life, from being released from prison, to his relationship troubles with women, to installing Grindr, and so on. Many people believed Cantwell's Telegram had been hacked, and in response, Cantwell would post a video of him clarifying that it was indeed him posting the messages.
No, these are not coming from a hacked phone. I actually made the post.
Eventually, Cantwell would sink to new depths, posting a message stating the following: "Not for the faint of heart. Audio of me fucking a 24-year-old guy in his mouth and ass, and talking lots of shit while I do it." One of the reasons Cantwell claims he shared this is because he thinks he would find it amusing.
Would you like me to put this in your asshole?
One of the reasons Cantwell claims he shared this is because he thinks we would find it amusing. In the audio, Cantwell can be heard saying erotic Nazi statements, like that after he's done having sex with the man, he would have sex with a woman to save the white race from the Jews. He also expresses that he finds the idea of a twink being fucked by a Nazi very erotic. Many people speculate that Christopher can't stop having gay sex whilst paranoia about being gang stalked and sexual episodes with men might be the result of abusing methamphetamines, as both paranoia and promiscuity are common side effects of the drug. Cantwell, however, doesn't identify as gay himself. He has written on his Telegram that he isn't gay, and that after fucking a whole lot of dudes, he knows that with even more confidence. Cantwell has also stated that if you don't believe him, you can literally suck his dick, seeing that he would like that. He has also stated that many guys go on Grindr because white women are so horrible and gay men are their only option due to feminism. In addition, you might be wondering why Cantwell would expose himself like this to his ridiculously homophobic community and not just take his chances with a random guy on Grindr telling everyone. Well, Cantwell has also revealed this information because it's all connected to the conspiracy against him, supposedly led by organized crime. Cantwell wanted to let the world know about his new life as a gay sex-having man so that he could better expose his gang stalkers, again, who are trying to trick him into having gay sex and give him AIDS. Cantwell has alleged that Grindr is a part of a Jewish conspiracy, and that its original purpose as an app was for espionage and blackmail. He goes on to detail accounts being created on the app, noticing deception, accounts having their distances changed too fast for a real person, and other pieces of evidence in the conspiracy. But nonetheless, Cantwell claims he was on Grindr basically all the way back at the beginning of his alt-right pivot, and that Bold Patrol gained access to his profile's data such that they could triangulate his position and movements in New Hampshire. Cantwell also states that the reason the multitude of people who knew he was using the app to have sexual encounters with men chose not to expose him was due to wanting to use this information as blackmail, only for them to sit on it for 8 years and have Cantwell expose this himself. The biggest challenge for a white nationalist is actually reproducing with a white woman. In the past, Cantwell had shared many details about his partners, details I chose to leave out of this video, such as when he explained that they had terminated their pregnancies. In most of these cases, these women were also women of colour. While now it seems if Cantwell is going to have sex with a white person, he insists that they must be a man. This is a known trend on the far right, where a large portion of the community advocate for authoritarian measures against different groups and behaviours that they themselves belong to or participate in. Cantwell himself backs this up by stating much of the alt-right are closeted homosexuals and that this motivates their belief in anonymity, even going as far to say many of the anonymous accounts making fun of him have engaged in oral sex on him. The alt-right hates trans women so much, when they see one, they turn 360 degrees and walk away. I would go as far to add that almost every single figure in white nationalism has these types of skeletons in their closet, from abuse allegations, criminal records, to drug use, and so on. Cantwell actually isn't that unique. These are views that attract people with psychopathic and narcissistic tendencies, like the desire to control others or deliberately seek controversy for attention, and these types adopt racist and far-right views to meet these antisocial desires they have. If someone who wasn't a neo-Nazi behaved like Christopher Cantwell, he would recognize them as degenerate filth. In Cantwell's case, his beliefs about race realism and Jewish conspiracies appear almost mundane next to his record of criminality and bizarre behavior. From what I have seen, there are two types of people who end up in the alt-right. The first are gullible young men who feel undervalued by society and in their insecurity and frustration are looking for a community that promises strength and blames others for their problems. The second are dysfunctional, dark triad personalities who are highly destructive with long rap sheets. These are not people you want to become involved with, and anyone who finds themselves approximating these types of beliefs needs to desperately know themselves and learn what is motivating their views in the first place. In Cantwell's case, despite everything, it seems like he has made some effort to tone down the violent rhetoric. He has hinted at wanting to get out of politics for years now. I think Cantwell's pivot towards being a gay smut author, away from advocating for political violence and genocide, is undoubtedly a good thing. I, for one, wish him well in his new venture as a homosexual. Maybe all Chris needed this whole time was a nice guy to take care of him.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, of course not.
His Telegram has gone from a neo-Nazi hangout to being just extremely pornographic. He talks about like the differences in techniques between fucking a guy in the arse versus the mouth. It's really something. I do, however, appreciate Cantwell's reflections on his sexuality and the thought behind his evolution. Like, to be honest, someone as dark, volatile, and intense as Cantwell probably would make a great smut author, not that I know anything about the genre. If for some reason you are watching this, Chris, I honestly hope you can get out of politics and pursue a new venture that you find empowering, which doesn't contribute to making the world a worse place. Despite everything, I think it's important for radicalized people to have a path back into society. For some, that path is just having so much gay sex that you forget about politics altogether. Chris, I have this fantasy that I would look across the tables and I'd see you there, in a gay polycule, and maybe a couple of adopted kids. You wouldn't say anything to me, nor me to you, but would both know that you'd made it, that you were happy. I never wanted you to come back to Charlottesville. I always knew that there was nothing here for you except pain and tragedy, and I wanted something more for you than that. I still do. Something gay as fuck. Christopher Cantwell.